Hello, in this video we'll be covering some information relating to input and output in the C++ programming language. In C++, a way of interacting with our program through our console is with the IOStream library. The IOStream library stands for Input-Output Stream, and you can think of streams as information that is flowing into your program from your operating system, or vice versa from your program to your operating system. The cout function, which is found in the IOStream library, uses these two less than symbols. These two less than symbols are called the insertion operator. You may also refer to these as the ostream operator or the output operator. However, the insertion operator is what is most commonly used. The cout function is responsible for printing information to our console, and the information is passed through these insertion operators. And the insertion operator passes what is on the right-hand side to the cout function. So what will happen here is hello PCCCS will be passed to our cout function and then printed to our console here. You'll notice that on the end of my line, I have this end L right here. This stands for end line. And what it does is it passes a new line into our string right here and then is passed into cout and a new line is printed. One other way you can do this is by using the new line character, which is a \n. This is my preferred method for using a new line, as endl performs some memory operations that can cause optimization issues with your program. However, in this class, the programs you will be writing will not be impacted by using endl, and you are free to use either the new line character or endl, whichever you prefer. Instead of using cout multiple times, as some people might do, as you can see here, what you can do in order to reduce your lines of code is chaining these insertion operators. This allows you to print multiple things on different lines without having to use cout more than once, as you can see here. In order to use input, we use the cin function. Cin is the opposite of cout and uses the extraction operator. You can also refer to the extraction operator as the istream operator or the input operator, whichever you are able to remember more easily. But again, the extraction operator is what is more commonly used. The cin function allows us to pass in information from our console into our program. You are also able to chain the extraction operator, just like with the insertion operator, in order to use multiple inputs without having to write cin on multiple lines as such. Then we can give multiple inputs as such. This can also work by entering numbers in one at a time. And it will work just the same. Although the C++ language tries its best to handle as many errors as it can, it is typically up to the programmer to handle most of the errors and solutions. For example, what if the user enters an alphabetic character instead of a numeric integer? Let's see what happens when we enter a alphabetic character. In this case, 0 was printed because this is the value that has been given to x. The reason why it has been given to x is because the compiler has created the program to handle an integer. However, because the program has detected that a is a character, it is unable to handle the input and assign the value to x. So instead, it assigns the value 0 to x as a way of telling us that it has failed to give it a value. is important to note that in this case, x will not always be given a value of 0 depending on which compiler you use. It is implementation dependent on the compiler. So what that means is that depending on the compiler you use, x may not be 0 at all. It may be a random value. So in this case, it is up to the programmer to ensure that x has some kind of valid value in order to prevent further errors in the future. Although not covered in this video, in order to check the value of x, we will use something called an if evaluation. If evaluations will be introduced later. However, I will show you a simple example of how to use them in order to check the value of x to ensure that we have a valid input. So here we will check to see whether x is equal to 0, and if it is, we will print out bad input and then assign the value of 4 to it. So let's rerun this program. And so as you can see here, because we entered in a character, a bad input was printed, and then we assigned the value 4 to x. And so as stated earlier, if evaluations are not covered in depth in this video, but they will be introduced more in depth later.